Give me a break. I'm gonna get a shot from here.
When I first heard about the death of Freddie Gray, I was sitting in my living room and I had just heard about it on the evening news. And my first reaction was, oh crap. This issue of police brutality has finally come into the spotlight for Baltimore City. His death was different because of the amount of media attention that he received. Without that, most people would not have even heard about it, and there wouldn't have been that big outburst and uprising. My name is Donovan Taylor. I go to Baltimore City College High School. I'm a senior, and I am a core member of City Block, which is the student grassroots organization of Baltimore City College. With the City Hall shutdown, when there was a chance we would get arrested, and we ultimately did get arrested, I had to do a lot of convincing from my mom and prove to her the risks and the benefits and how the benefits were greater than the risks. What we're doing is controversial. Not everyone agrees with it. So when you're like out in society, or when you're out doing protests, you can hear like hecklers and things like that. So sometimes that can bother me. I just don't understand how people cannot be for this. Being a black youth in Baltimore, there are a lot of obstacles that you have to face. And although I've kind of been shielded from these obstacles through the privileges that I've had in my family, there have still been instances where I felt less than. My uncle, a few years ago, he was murdered, and that was like the first time for me that violence had hit home to me, and that kind of radically changed how I thought about the world and why I believe that I should have been more involved in like activism. I was working in the city council president's office, and during that time period, it was the trial of George Zimmerman and the death of Trayvon Martin. And I just remember watching the TV screen and sitting there thinking that my life didn't have value in the American justice system and American society, and I felt like that needed to change. My life matters in America, and I deserve that.
The protests impacted me as a parent because now I had to explain to my children, not that I did not already talk to them about historically some of the things that people of color have had to deal with, but I had to really now take the initiative to explain to them what was going on the best that I could. One of the hardest questions I've had to answer from my kids is the amount of violence. They could not comprehend why there was so much violence on the TV. We're somewhat far removed from those days when protests and stuff was always going on. So to see it happen in our day is like, wait, what?
You know that one person in your school that gets picked on all day long. At some point, they're gonna zap out. And that's not a riot, that's actually them finally responding to the abuse and punishment that they've been dealing with all along. So the Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle is a youth think tank in Baltimore City. Our mission is to connect young people to policy. We teach young people how to be leaders, and we give them the tools of research and of knowledge of self. An activist is somebody who responds and reacts when things happen. An organizer is somebody who's constantly putting activists in situations where they can thrive. So LBS isn't an activist organization. It may be activists in LBS, but we're organizers. We're fighting so that you don't become the next Freddie Gray.
It's been a long time since youth have taken to the streets to talk about what it is they need and deserve. So I was very encouraged to see that happening. On the other hand, I was sad to see it devolve into violence, but I think that the reasons for that violence were multidimensional. we can't just point fingers at the children. Like the incidents kind of started in school, but what were the adult responses like? The problem is that we still have not broken down the barriers to racial discrimination. We have not built enough bridges so that people who are poor can cross the bridge and come on into the other life that everyone's living. That failing is on us. And the fact that there was a demonstration of our nation's failing was good for us to see so that we can move on and do more. I think that adults grossly underestimate students. Students can do absolutely anything.
When you work for the police department, which I never planned on working for the police department, so I think that I come with a very unique perspective because I'm an African-American woman and I'm a civilian, so I'm not a sworn person. And so I saw things from the community's perspective, but then because I've been in the police department, I also understand the police perspective as well. You know, Freddie Gray was a human being who had a lot of things happen to him in his life, and people jumped to conclusions about who he was and what he deserved and all these sorts of things. And then you have the same thing with the 6 police officers. These are human beings. They're people too, so when they take off their uniform, they're going home to their kids. The way it affected me is that I just wish that everybody would pay attention to the human suffering and the human issues, and that justice be done for everybody involved.
How I've seen Baltimore change over the course of my years here. I've seen the younger generation get a tad bit out of hand. I've seen the older generation get very docile. I've seen organizers come together and activists come together.
I believe that Baltimore has changed in some regards, but not in other regards. Since the Baltimore Uprising and the riots, there has been more emphasis in listening to the voices of young people. After the youth of Baltimore went crazy, people began to pay attention to y'all and realize that they weren't listening to us before. So I think that that's a huge change that we've had since then.
It's important that we tell the truth about Baltimore. And the truth is that people here work hard. When they're in a bad spot, they pull themselves out of it. When they have nothing, they make something out of nothing.
I really focus on trying to engage with the youth because the youth of today really understands the issues that we're facing.
All of us have a responsibility on how we can positively impact the community. All of us have the ability to be an inspiration, whether you want to be or not. It's not the big solutions that's going to answer the question. Sometimes you got to start small. First with yourself, and then taking small steps like just reaching out to help somebody else.
What they need is a place to voice who they are, their concerns, their plans, the actions that they would like to take. I've been very excited to see more and more youth step up and take the microphone and talk about what's really going on. I believed in our youth before the uprising. I believe in our youth after the uprising.
I'm hoping for a future where the city council doesn't invest more in the Inner Harbor and in rich neighborhoods than they do in Sandtown and in West Baltimore. I'm hoping for a future where there's equal opportunities regardless of what zip code you live in, regardless of what schools you go to, regardless of what household you come from. I'm looking forward to a future where there's more investment in the schools and in the children. I'm looking for a future where there's more community involvement in the police, like a civilian review board whenever there's like an internal issue going on with the police in Baltimore. I look forward to a future where students have more voice and more importance in the political processes here in Baltimore. I look forward to a future where the people of Baltimore are more united.